What is happening, people, and welcome everybody back to In the End Zone UK. Thank you for joining our American football podcast. I'm your host, Dom, and we are back once again with our new podcast. This episode is all about the NFL draft. We're going to talk all the details, all the players, all the signings, all the big moves. But before we get into that news, I have to introduce the other half of the In the End Zone team. Across the mic, as per usual, my co-host, he's back. He's better than ever. It's Big Dave. How's it going, Dave? Long time no smell.
Yeah, all good. Feels like it's been an absolute age since we've sat down to talk.
It really has.
Some crap on the Packers, the Wind Sox, the Cowboys.
Oh, don't you worry.
But don't fear. Yeah, do not fear.
They're all going to get it.
Listeners. They're all getting some today.
Absolutely. And yeah, it has been a while, and it has felt like a while prior to this draft, or this draft day, which happened this Thursday just gone. The NFL has been a little bit stagnant, hasn't it, Dave? A little bit like eerie. Nothing happening. A lot of free agents still available. And I think it was just a lot of teams were waiting for this day, right?
Yeah. And I can kind of get it as well, especially with how like the wide receiver market's just exploded this year. Everyone seems to be getting paid. I think a lot of them have waited for the draft, see who was available, then moved on from players in the draft, signed other players. Mm-hmm. I think there's still a few left. There's still a few people left out there in the free agency market that will probably be picking up. So I imagine it will pick up over the next couple of weeks.
Definitely, we should see some more action, and hopefully that'll allow us to hit the podcast a bit more regularly. But you are exactly right. You know, the market almost dictated that NFL teams needed to hold off, because there is no way on this planet that all teams could start paying their sort of half number one wide receivers 22 to 25 to 28 mil. That seems like that's the going rate for a decent wide receiver at the moment. And that proved very, very quickly in the draft, as we'll get on to talk about, that actually some teams were waiting for that. They were waiting for these new rookie receivers that they could just bang into their team and hope that they make an impact, just like the players that are in the NFL. And it might be a smart move, because, you know, paying the likes of Christian Kirk and others that are not proven elite receivers 20 plus million a year, it doesn't seem like the smart move, does it?
No. So it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to spend on a receiver and they blow hot and cold. You know, they're just like running backs. Receivers blow hot and cold. The elite perform year after year. You know, your Tyreek Hills, your Devontae Adams, but then. You know what I mean? We're seeing it, paying a wide receiver 21 million to absolutely win, caught as many touchdowns as I did, sat here.
Kenny Golladay. Yeah, that was a bad move for you last year. But that's exactly right. You know, proof is in the pudding. It goes to show you that they're not always big hits, especially if you pay them that money. So there is the potential that you land say Justin Jefferson in year one, and you get him for super cheap. So it seems like a lot of those teams are banking on these receivers being elite, but we'll talk about those in a few minutes. So yeah, the draft kicked off 28th of April from Las Vegas, and it was a very, very unprecedented draft. Definitely didn't go the way that I think most people expected it to. And so this week's episode, Dave, I'm going to call Shafted or Drafted. And that is because we're going to talk about all the best and worst moves from this draft class, who has been drafted and is going to do awesomely, who is going to be shafted. And we need to talk about those teams that have maybe made some critical errors moving into this oncoming season, because I saw a few. I don't know about you, but we'll definitely get to talking about them. And what better way to start than for us to rely on an old faithful segment. We're running it back. We're bringing you a new edition of the NFL Draft. Slap or sign. You ready, Dave? You ready to warm that hand up? Give it a good old shining up and hit one of those NFL GMs, because I want a slap off the bat for you, and I want to hear of which NFL team or GM you are going to slap from the NFC for the moves that they made in the 2022 draft.
Give me a few seconds to to wind my page all the way to the bottom because this team has a new name.
Oh yeah?
They will, however, be henceforth known as still the Windsox because the name is absolute dog shit. The Washington Commanders, they did not have a good draft.
No.
They're absolutely stinking it up at quarterback with Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that these had such a woeful, mediocre, pathetic, abysmal, downtrodden draft.
It was bad.
It means we get to piss on them twice this year. But, however, I just don't understand really what they were thinking. They drafted, so the wide receiver that they drafted, most people had him as a late second, early third round draft pick, and they took him as 16th pick.
Jahan Dotson, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, these, not necessarily these gradings are right because you don't end. That's going to caveat everything because we'll probably put our foot in it with one of these people who turns out to be an absolute, takes the league by storm because that's what happens, like the draft process isn't, if the best player in the league was drafted number one, it'd be obvious, but that's not the way it works. Somebody from the fourth round, a Kittle was drafted in the fourth round, for example. You just don't know with these people. It depends on what situation they go to, how good the people were they were playing in college. It's all a cesspit of statistics that go into these calculations to where these people get drafted and whatnot.
It does, but the Commanders didn't do a lot to give you a lot of faith, really, did they? Ron Rivera has made some weird choices in this scenario, and I agree with you. It's one of the worst draft grades of the year, I think, and so they're getting a slap from you. But was there any positives to come from the Commanders draft? I can't see any.
I don't know. I mean, so they drafted a quarterback,
Sam Howell.
Yeah, that's who's going to probably provide competition for Heineke to be the backup.
Mm.
Why waste that pick on somebody in the fifth round when you know Heineke's all right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, he could turn out to be amazing, but
he's not going to, is he?
No, like everybody, it's all smoke and mirrors with these teams, isn't it? They all talk about these quarterbacks that could be picked and stuff like that, and they all absolutely slid. They felt like a knackered elevator, all of them.
Yeah, it's true.
Apart from the Pittsburgh one, who works out, practices, plays, trains in the same building as the Steelers. So the Steelers have probably got a little bit of inside gen on him. They look at him and they go, this kid might be alright. Yeah, they've probably seen him play all year for the last fucking 2 years or whatever.
Mm.
But the rest of him, Malik Willis is this, he's going to be that, he's going to be that. Is he?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fell like a stone, didn't he?
He did. The Commanders picked up this Sam Howell really, really late. You could argue that was a good choice by them, considering they got him later in the draft. But there's a reason why these quarterbacks are falling, right? And so, if they were any good, or the scouts thought that they were any good whatsoever, one of those teams that needed a quarterback, and they still do, some of them, would have taken a punt on any number of those quarterbacks prior to when they went.
Yeah, no, and none of them did.
No, exactly.
Not one did. Not the Lions, not the Texans, who had the second, third, fourth picks or whatever. Not one of them took him. Because they must be Dogus Turdus. Do you know what I mean? They're going to be perennial backups if they're that.
Is that the official Latin for that? Dogus Turdius?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a man with knowledge. So I don't think the Windsox I don't think they've had a good off season.
No, they definitely haven't. I mean, thinking that Carson Wentz is your answer is mistake numero uno in that scenario. And then following that with...
He can't do it with the Colts. Do you know what I mean? I think he's taking
exactly.
Noah's chances, the other Latin for that.
Love it. Okay, so that was your NFC slap that went to the Falcons. To the Windsox. What about your NFC sign? Who performed well in the NFC draft-wise?
I'm a bit biased, but I'm going to go with the Giants. Super shock for everybody. I know that. But
come on, explain to us why. Explain to us why, though.
after years of having a GM that picked who he wanted without listening to the scouts, if he listened to the scouts, we'd have signed, rather than signing Saquon Barkley and Will Hernandez, we'd have got, who's the guard?
Quinn
Nelson and Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like, it's nice now that we've got a new GM in, a new head coach that have taken us in a new route, and basically we picked up Kayvon Thibodeau, who going into the college year, he was the highest rated prospect in it.
Yeah.
But I think there was I didn't know how I'd feel about this because I knew there was a potential of us taking him, and I've been on Twitter gobbing off non-stop saying that I don't want him. But when we drafted him 5th,
your opinion
a
totally
little
changed.
bit inside me kind of was like, oh, I don't feel like that's a bad call. Like, I feel like it's a good shout for us. And
I don't think so at all either. But like, obviously I'm not a Giants fan and you are, and I knew when I saw that they'd taken Thibodeau 5th, the issue, or like the benefit, was what was still left on the board meant that you definitely should have, because other teams had reached for you knew that you were going to still get a guard. And so taking Thibodeau as okay, it might be a risk. He might not necessarily, it may not be a Chase Young. He may not be a Myles Garrett, so to speak, but he's got the potential to be. And the fact that your Giants team has always led from the front when they've had a decent pass rusher, speaks volumes, I think. And the fact that you still were able to, not to poo on your parade, I know you're going to talk about it, but you got one of, if not the best, guard in the draft as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, tackle.
Evan Neal we got with the seventh pick. And I've seen some of the college people, like the pundits and stuff, poo-pooing it a little bit, but he's the only one that played throughout his entire time as a right tackle. Mm-hmm. And we've got a left tackle, we don't need a left tackle, we need a right tackle.
Yeah.
So to take him, I think, probably apart from maybe the Jets or the Ravens, we're the best first day.
Nice.
The Jets obviously had an extra pick.
Yeah.
And you could argue that the Ravens had to give up their only wide receiver, to get where they got. So I think ultimately, without giving anything up, we're the best sort of first day. And then we did have a good day one. Wan'Dale Robinson, who I'm not going to lie to anybody out there. The only two that I knew that we took, the only people who I knew of, were the first two people. I'm not a college fan. I definitely want to start watching more, but Wan'Dale Robinson, everyone had him as like a 3rd round pick, and we took him at the start of the 2nd.
Yeah.
Now I don't care because I know the Giants and I know what he looks like to me. When his tape came on, he looks like Sterling Shepard,
right,
who is our arguably 2nd best wide receiver, who tore his Achilles. So you don't know what he's going to look like, and he's got Robinson's got a similar skill set to Kadarius Toney, who can't stay healthy. Mm-hmm. So they've plugged the kind of hybrid bloke in there who hopefully can stay healthy. And
you've given yourself depth.
Job in the slot.
You've given yourself depth so that the Giants won't necessarily, as they have done in most recent years past, be crippled by specific injuries. Do you know what I mean? Like, if Kadarius Toney was to go down or Sterling Shepard was to be injured again, you've got that depth at a potentially reasonably solid / I won't say elite, but solid level.
Yeah, we basically address. I don't know every other team in depth, but what I know the Giants needed was a pass rush, offensive line help, a corner because we don't know what's happening with James Bradbury. We're trying to offload him, tight end and linebacker. And you look at the people we drafted: edge, offensive tackle, wide receiver, guard, corner, tight end, linebacker, safety. So we've addressed all the needs that we needed. And hopefully these guys can plug in and play day one. A lot of these will play day one, which is what we needed. So
nice.
Yeah, I think we had one of the better drafts. I've seen.
Who's your head coach? Who's your current head coach now? Is it the guy from the Bills?
Brian Daboll, yeah.
Brian Daboll. So he's smashed his first potential draft with you guys, and
I think so.
Yeah, hopefully gives you that team to build off. I didn't pick the Giants as necessarily my best, but they're definitely up there. Like, I definitely thought about signing them for the NFC from my side. it's a close one. I think I was just looking at some of the other picks that fall down the notch, but as you said, day one, you had probably one of the best days, if not the best day out there for teams. 2 picks in the top 10 is pretty savage.
Yeah.
And you hit with those picks. So nicely done. And then over to the AFC. Who are you going to sign for the AFC? Who impressed you?
I think it's got to be, well, it's not got to be, but I'd give it to the Jets because, so I've kind of stuck with the Jets aren't winning nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But what the Jets have got to do is they've got to look at the other teams that are in their division, yeah? So they've got the Patriots who have, for the last 20 years, dominated that division.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got the Bills who are looking like for the next 10, 15 years are going to dominate the AFC, let alone so they needed to get better inside their own division before obviously they can start then moving on. And I think that their first, like I was saying about their first, you look at their picks, okay, so they took Sauce Gardner at 4th.
Lockdown corner.
Arguably the best corner in the draft, yeah? Him or Stingley. And they got him 2nd, yeah? They take the best wide receiver, or arguably the best wide receiver in the draft with Garrett Wilson. They then get the 3rd best pass rusher in the draft with the 26th pick.
That's mad.
The next pick, they get the best running back in the draft.
That's true.
The pick after that, they get the best blocking tight end in the draft. Do you know what I mean? They literally hit on every, and they only picked to the 4th round.
Yeah.
They had a really good draft, a really strong draft, and I think a lot of people.
Mad. That is
and they had
mad,
a good draft last year as well.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and they got that Jermaine Johnson at 25th. He was pegged in a number of mock drafts to go super early.
In top 10, yeah.
Yeah. And then Breece Hall, he was a PFF 99 rated running back. The only running back before him that was rated 99 to go in the draft was Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Jets have hit on every pick.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. They had a really good draft. And I don't think people are overlooking it, but I think over the last 2 years, I mean, I don't think Wilson's that good, but they got the quarterback who they think is their quarterback. They got, was it Elijah Vera Tucker they had last year as well? So they picked good players last year. So I think it'd be interesting to see. I think they were going to overtake the Patriots.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
It'd be good to see if they do, because the Jets have been a long time coming, I think, a very long time coming. And they've missed with a lot of picks with Sam Darnold and a few others. But if they translate from college, some of these players look naughty.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jets was your sign from the AFC, and let's hit me with your last slap. Who are you slapping from the AFC, Dave?
Well, ironically, the team that I've just said, the Jets, are going to overtake the Patriots.
Okay.
And so the Patriots reached massively at arms like Stretch Armstrong, taking Cole Strange from Chattanooga. where the flip is Chattanooga, I do not know. But this is off PFF, I'll just read it. Cole Strange is the biggest reach of round 1, as the Chattanooga mock was ranked 86th.
Wow.
And they took him at 29.
That's pathetic.
But other people had him as like a 4th round draft grade.
It's bad, isn't it?
And then they took, I think is he a wide receiver? Yeah, Tyquan Thornton was ranked, they took him 49th. He was ranked 192nd.
Yeah.
Off his college performance.
They took him, that Thornton, I think they took him because he was
one
of the fastest in the draft.
Yeah, he was, 4.2840. But this is what I mean.
But who cares?
And I'm literally going to flick onto a page here. So they took him because he's quick. How often does that work out? Has John Ross done anything? John Ross is the fastest person to ever run a 40.
And he doesn't do wind.
No, he's not only that, sat on like the Giants' backup bench.
Yeah.
Not even on the bench, he's on the backup bench.
And not only that, but say you're Patrick Mahomes and you go, all right, we take this absolute speedster, and you think he will find a way to get the ball downfield at least twice in a year. When on earth is Mac Jones throwing a deep ball to that guy for fucking more than 20 yards.
No, and
it's not going to happen, is it?
No,
he didn't throw a deep ball all last year.
Yeah, and listen to this. So this dude, so it talks about his 40 time here, and then it says he's talking about catch after run after the catch, but he isn't even a threat with that. So he averaged 3.9 yards after the catch in 143. Yeah,
I could get that just by falling over.
Well, that's what it is. Yeah, caught the ball and fell over. Absolute dog turd.
Caught the ball, tripped over his own laces.
The Patriots need to have a word with themselves.
Yeah.
So they're really good at bringing free agents in. They are beyond woeful at drafting. So these are their draft picks, yeah. And so from last year, that's from this year, yeah. So I'll ignore that one. Let me know if any of these are stars or relatively good players that you've even heard of, yeah. So this is from last year. So Mac Jones, obviously, yeah.
He's done okay.
Christian Barmore.
No.
Ronnie Perkins didn't even play last year. So that Ramondre Stevenson, he was all right.
He was a running back, wasn't he?
Yeah,
but he was
right,
a rotational running back, yeah.
Cameron McCrone didn't play a game. Joshua Bledsoe didn't play a game. William Sherman played one game. Trey Nixon didn't play a game. That's from last year. So the year before that, Kyle Duggar, ever heard of him?
No.
Devin Assisi.
No.
Dalton Keene.
No.
Like, honestly, these players, I don't even know if they're on the Patriots, but they're not like 2019. N'Keal Harry, big fat bust.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they picked him with the last pick of the draft, of the first round. Jojuan Williams.
Never heard of him.
Chase Winovich, I don't even know if he's still on the Patriots.
He is. Oh, no, they think they traded him.
Yeah.
But
Damian Harris.
Damian Harris, that's the running back in it. He's been okay. He's been okay.
Jarrett Stidham. Jake Bailey is a punter. Next round, Isaiah Wynn. Sony Michel. These are all right players. But I couldn't tell you the rest of them. The rest of the people that are on this list.
Yeah, nobody's broke out, have they?
No, and literally you've got to go all the way down to Joe Tooney's all right, I suppose, and he's a guard.
Yeah, he's been all right.
So
he's gone though, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he's at Patriots. I think he's at
the Chiefs now. Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
These are all Malcolm Brown, Trey Flowers, Shaq Mason. These are like all Jimmy Garoppolo, James White. You can go down. They've not drafted one like superstar person.
No.
Since probably 2012 when they drafted Chandler Jones.
Yeah, it's a beast, but they let him go as well.
Like, I just don't get it. They're not like
Cardinals.
Yeah, and he's not a superstar, is he? The last superstar they drafted was Gronk in 2010.
Yeah, that's mad. That's 12 years ago.
So they've got a real bad history of drafting. Their draft is crap.
Yeah.
History is crap.
Definitely. And that's why they're getting a big old slap, and it doesn't look like they've done anything in this one. I think, in fact, according to Sporting, what is it? It might be PFF. They might have the worst grade. I think they might have been given the worst grade for the drafting. Interesting that is. We'll see what happens. But the Patriots, they could be, as you predicted, maybe being superseded by Jets.
Sweat.
Cool. That's yours.
Yep, that is me. Good to go. Right, who are you going to sign from the AFC? We'll stick with it. Africa.
Okay, so AFC, obviously this was a pretty tight one. You went with the Jets. I went with the Ravens. So I feel like the Ravens had a solid draft and certainly a solid day one. Some of the moves that they made, or the move that they made to obtain the players they did, was an interesting one. As you said, the Ravens actually traded Marquise Hollywood Brown so that they could move up the board and get Tyler Linderbaum, who's a centre. Now, for me, that kind of just speaks to how the Ravens operate. That speaks to me and says the Ravens know who they are. They're a run-first team. They need to get that run going. A bad boy centre helps all of that come together. And so they've gone, do you know what? Hollywood Brown, you've been on and off over the last 3 years that they've had him. Yes, he's lit up a few teams at times. He's a speedster, but that's pretty much all Hollywood Brown has actually got. He's just got speed, and you can go out and get that speed somewhere else, I'm sure, which maybe they've done. I'm not sure about their later round picks, but to get Linderbaum as their second pick in the first round and to get Kyle Hamilton as their first pick is dirty wine. Like, the Ravens secondary is a joke. The Ravens defense is a bit of a joke, but their secondary is a joke. I can't even explain. They must have, they've got to have the best secondary in football. I can't think of a better one now. Marcus Peters, they've got Humphreys.
Peter's still there?
Yeah, Marcus Peters is still there. He just injured. They both got injured, didn't they?
Oh,
so Marcus
right,
Peters got ACL or ankle, something like that. But he's still at the Ravens. So you've got Marcus Peters. They've got Marlon Humphrey. They've got what's the safety that came across from the Saints anyway. I've forgotten his name now, but they've got a bad boy strong safety or free safety, and now they've got Humphreys, and they've got depth at that position as well. They've got an amazing secondary. It's disgusting if they're all healthy. Like, you do not want to throw on the Ravens, and I think that that's exactly. They've gone down that route to be like, right, we're a run-first team. They can control ball games. You almost have to throw the ball against the Ravens because you don't have much time against them because they're just bombarding you with that run game. And the teams like the Bills, the Chiefs, all those teams that are going to compete against them in the AFC, they're all fucking gunslingers. You know, they're the teams that you're going to have to like push the ball downfield. Burrow even, you know, in their division. They're all going to have to throw the ball downfield to try and win these games. And you've got the likes of those four in the backfield. To me, that's like, it's amazing by the Ravens. They've done what they needed to do to go up and get some of the best players available. And kudos to doing that. Like, they've been brave, you know, by getting rid of Hollywood Brown. He was a potential availability. My only question would be, was Hollywood Brown the best place? Was the Cardinals the best place for him to go? I'd have assumed that you could have got way more value from other teams, considering the wide receiver market and how that looks at the moment. You know, the Packers or someone else might have wanted it, but I guess they got the best pick with the teams that were remaining that they could. They got an edge rusher in David Ajabu, who's British, so we want to shout him out. David Ajabu is an edge rusher from the UK. So we've got to give him a little bit of kudos. And they seem to do a fair bit of good drafting throughout. And they've got some good players coming back off injuries, you know, as well, that they didn't even have playing last year. J.K. Dobbins, who was really good. So I think that who's the coach for them? Harbaugh. Yeah, I think he's done a really good job. So Ravens get my sign of approval.
Yeah, I mean, that Ajobu, is he the one who tore his Achilles?
Might have been.
No, hold on. Yeah.
So they'll get him next year.
That's why he fell as far as he did. But I mean, I wanted that Linderbaum so badly. I was begging that we traded up back into the first round to take him at centre, because he's an absolute. Basically, I think they got the two best players in the draft with Kyle Hamilton and Linderbaum.
Yeah, it's good.
But no, they were like, it was a toss up between them and the Jets.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think the Ravens had the best draft. I just didn't like the fact that they gave away their wide receiver and then they didn't draft one after that.
Interesting.
Tyler Badie, I don't know if he's a.
No, they didn't draft one. They didn't draft one at all.
I don't know where.
They drafted safety, centre, edge, DT, OT, cornerback.
No, he's a running back.
Yeah, so Tyler Badie's a running back. So yeah, maybe, I mean, there's a few out there in free agency. Maybe that's where they're going to go. There's still Odell Beckham's available, Jarvis Landry's available. There's still a few available. So maybe that's where
they don't want, like you say, they know what their strength is.
Yeah.
And I saw an interview with Hollywood Brown who told what's their quarterback called? Lamar Jackson. He told Lamar Jackson after the season that he weren't staying. He weren't happy and he wasn't staying.
Oh, really?
So I think and he's right, because ultimately, if he wants to get paid, not that I'm saying he can get 20 million, but if someone's going to pay him 20 million, it ain't going to be the Ravens, because the Ravens don't want that. The Ravens ain't going to pay a wide receiver 20 million that's only catching 3 balls a game.
Yeah.
Because every play is either being run by a running back or, and they play with the tight ends, don't they? They've got good tight ends. So
yeah, no, that's true. So so that's why the Ravens get signed from me.
Okay, who are you going to slap from the AFC?
So this may be a controversial one, because from what I've seen from everywhere else, they've been given a relatively good draft grade, but I ain't buying it. I am slapping the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what I'm going to do, because they obviously were the first team to take a quarterback. They were the first team to take a quarterback in a very poor quarterback draft class. They took Kenny Pickett, who, again, apparently is the best quarterback in the draft. But going into the draft, unless all of the scouts were keeping everything super close to their chest, and even some of the pundits and all the people that see the tape and watch the draft and the combine, nobody was like, Kenny Pickett is the one. Like, nobody was like, Kenny Pickett is by far the best quarterback, no questions about it. And because of that, because nobody was like, he's the number one, there was some people saying Malik Willis has got the best upside. There was some people saying that even that Sam Howell was half decent. The fact that the Steelers have gone with their first pick and jumped and taken Kenny Pickett, and then taken another receiver in George Pickens, and they're going, this is going to transform the Steelers offense. Is it? Fuck. It's not going to. And as you said, he's played in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett has played in Pittsburgh. They know all about him. They've watched him. He plays in that environment. He plays in that stadium. Okay, that's cool. That might help him a little bit, but really, does it help him? Okay, he's not going to have a massive upheaval. He's going to be used to the stadium. He's going to be playing NFL football though, Dave. He's going to be playing against the fucking best of the best. And if some teams have evaluated these quarterbacks and they couldn't really make the difference between them, you've got Kenny Pickett going at the 20th pick or whatever he was, and then you've got all of the other ones, mostly, who were evaluated very similarly, apparently, unless the cards were a bit so close to their chest, going at round 3, 2, late in the 4th. Like, to me, I don't know, it feels a little bit like the Steelers have reached, and then they've gone and picked up, George Pickens, who's a wide receiver that everyone's saying is good, but they took him so late that he can't be that good. So I mean, I've got a bit of a disdain for the Steelers anyway, and it definitely grew this year whilst watching them, because half their players are absolute fucking gimps, and they had Ben Roethlisberger, who was a man on stilts, but all of their other picks don't excite me either. They took 2 wide receivers early. They took a DT/defensive end in DeMarvin Leal, who on Madden I actually drafted him and he was pretty good, but that don't say shit. I just can't see it. I think the Steelers are going to be in that same conversation. They've got 3 quarterbacks that are all vying for the starting job, and they're in a division where they could get absolutely pumped every week by the Browns with Deshaun Watson, by the Bengals with Joe Burrow, and now by Lamar Jackson. They're in a top spot.
They're definitely the bottom of the pile, aren't they, when it comes to that?
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, like I say, PFF knew more about me based on stats and stuff, and they ranked this dude as the 4th best quarterback in the draft.
Seriously?
Yeah. But like I say, the only thing, if I was a Steelers fans, I would be buzzing about is the fact that he went to Pittsburgh, like I say, and they would have seen him. They will see him, not just play games, they'll see what his attitude's like in the building. True. So they will know more about Pickett than anybody will know about any other player in the draft.
Yeah.
Because they'll have been keeping tabs on him. So Steelers fans, it might not all be doom and gloom, but like you say, the rest of the picks, I don't think there's anyone there. I'd not heard of any of them.
No, and I can't see Pickett doing amazing things either.
Well, he's got to beat out Mitchell Trubisky,
yeah,
Mason Rudolph. Oh, I mean, he's probably already better than Mason Rudolph.
No, I could be Mason Rudolph, to be honest.
Yeah, he's still got a fucking concussion from when Myles Garrett shortened his life by about 4 years when he hit him with an helmet. Happy days. Sweet. Who are you going to slap from the NFC?
Okay, I think I'm going QB heavy here, but I think these are some of the impact positions that are going to make the biggest differences, and they're the biggest decisions to make. So from the NFC, I am slapping the Atlanta Falcons for taking Desmond Ridder as their quarterback. I wasn't impressed by it at all. I mean, am I slapping them as their overall draft? Not necessarily. They took Drake London as a wide receiver who was supposed to be one of the best. Did they need a receiver? Hell yes. Did they need a receiver?
Because they literally throw into a bunch of fucking Dave and Doms out at the minute. They ain't got nobody.
Proper Dave Dom and Cam's catching the football going down that pitch if they didn't draft Drake London. So, and we know how good Cam is at catching. So, it's definitely the right decision to go with one of those, and Drake London could be a good potential. But for me, when you're in a position like the Falcons, drafting a wide receiver like that, without anybody who's throwing in the ball, without an established, passer, it's almost like, what's the point? Yes, you need one, and I suppose you're hoping to bolster your team for years forward. But for me, it just felt a bit odd. And then they took this Desmond Ridder. Have you seen Desmond Ridder? He looks older than my dad, and he's just he's just been drafted. Swear to God, have a look at a picture of it. And no offense to Big Steve, no offense to Big Steve whatsoever. But my dad's 56. Desmond Ridder's supposed to be 23. He looks older than my dad. I swear to Moses. He looks already older than Big Ben.
Oh my God.
He looks horrendous, mate. And I don't know if Kenny Pickett was rated at 4th. I don't know if Ridder was rated ahead of him or not. But when they panned the camera towards him, I was like, oh, that's, they're looking at freaking Desmond Ridder's dad.
Is it like Voldemort?
Oh no, it's not Desmond Ridder's dad. It's him. Absolute nightmare. When you take a franchise quarterback, a quarterback that's going to lead your team from the front, you want somebody like Joey B, don't you? Like Joe Burrow, who can bang the sunglasses on, look cool as fuck. You want somebody like Cam Newton or whatever, whereas this bloke looks like he's just been pulled off the fucking crack streets. He doesn't look good. He looks weathered.
He looks like an actor that's been hired to play a Hall of Fame quarterback.
He does. It just looks pathetic. So I know. I mean, it's not all on looks, is it? And I could be totally wrong, but I'm slapping the Falcons because I don't think they had a great draft. They've been ranked as having a relatively good one, but I think that's all on Drake London. Everything else, not good. So
I suppose they take. So I think the two things that they needed desperately more than anything else on earth was a wide receiver and an edge rusher, man. And they've got 2 edge rushers, but by the night, they needed a wide receiver. So they've got Marcus Mariota in there. So he's the starter. So Mariota's going to be the starter, isn't he? But I suppose, maybe what they're doing is they're going, we're not looking at a quarterback this year. We know we're going to have a bit of a pump year, but they've got Drake London. I think he's 6'4".
Yeah.
And they've got Kyle Pitts. So they've got big targets. Mariota is a mobile quarterback. So maybe they're just thinking we'll get through and then next year we'll pump everything and get a quarterback next year when the draft's a little bit deeper. And I suppose they take Ridder and be like, he's got a big arm on him. Let's just see. Do you know what I mean? If see what he's like. If he's dog turd, they took him in the 3rd round, who really cares?
Yeah.
No, the Steelers, do you know what I mean? If that bloke's absolute waffle, then they've wasted the 20th pick in the 1st round on him.
And that's why they got a major slap from me, because it is a waste, because I feel like you could have got any of those quarterbacks with your 2nd or 3rd pick.
Yeah. That Drake London looks like he's got a bit of panache though when he came out on the stage.
Yeah.
He ain't got Thibodeau panache, but he's
The problem is when you're the Falcons, he's no Julio Jones, is he?
Well, I suppose Oh no, but Julio Jones I don't know.
I just feel like as
we'll
the Falcons, you've had that luxury of Julio Jones for the last 10 years. Like anybody who steps into the Falcons wide receiver room has got to be like, fuck me, I need to do well.
Maybe they'll pick Julio back up.
They probably should. Okay, last one. So you're not going to like this.
Go on.
Soz, you're not going to like this at all. But my final sign in the NFC has got to go to the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's such a virgin.
I know, sorry.
Virgin pick.
It's a proper.
They only had fucking 5 picks.
I know, but it's not just about the pick. It's about what they did. They had picks to use, and they packaged a few of them to make some big moves. To be honest, number one, they took Jordan Davis. Now going into that draft as a DT, watching his tape, watching his fucking combine, that guy is like the Incredible Hulk, but black. Do you know what I mean? Like he's just an absolute monster. He's not green, but that's about as close to an Incredible Hulk as you can get. He's strong. He's fast. He's an absolute wrecking ball. He's unrefined as well, which I think is dangerous because as soon as he gets a little bit of techers and some NFL technique and some of the coaches get their hands on him, imagine trying to stop that unit coming through the middle. And the Eagles have always been, since I've been watching football, they've always been about offensive line and defensive line. And how many times have you said how much of an opportunity good offensive lines and defensive lines give you to win a football game?
Yeah, definitely.
Unbelievable. And so they've plugged him in. Now Brandon Graham's gone. He's just going to be a young version of that. And then how they managed to package a pick or 2 picks, I think it was. In fact, yeah, it was the Titans received an 18th and 101st pick. So a pick 1 and a pick 3, I think it was, or maybe pick 4. And they got AJ Brown out of nowhere, literally full on Randy Orton RKO out of nowhere to pull out AJ Brown, one of the best up and coming receivers. The only bad thing about it is they've got Jalen Hurts throwing to him. So it's like, it's like you throwing him the football. But either way, AJ Brown's going to make any quarterback slightly better. The man's a beast.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, obviously that doesn't, it's not, I'm not too worried about the Davis because I'm pretty sure he played in the same conference, against, Neil.
Oh, okay.
And Neil had him in his pocket. So like, I'm not too worried about that.
Right.
But AJ Brown is an issue because Devontae Smith's good. And if they get the right quarterback in there, the Eagles are going to be a problem. They got a good linebacker as well, which annoyed the life out of me because I wanted Nakobe Dean.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
So yeah, they've definitely drafted well, but I think they basically got AJ Brown for a 1st round pick. And then they're paying him $25 million a year.
Yeah. I think with what was left on the board at that point though, whenever they took him, whether it was 18th or whatever pick they gave up for him, by that point, the receivers that had gone off the board, for me, you'd take him all day.
100%. Firstly, he's proven.
Yeah.
And I mean, he does get injured a little bit, doesn't he? But
he does, yeah.
He's proven. So you take somebody who's proven with a later 1st round pick than like what the Falcons drop on Drake London at 8.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean? Like, no, they've absolutely. I was annoyed when I saw it come through. But they basically got him for a 1st round pick, which is a gift, isn't it? And then the Titans have basically replaced him with his exact model from college.
Yeah.
But again, they're running the ball. They don't give a flying monkeys, do they? And they certainly ain't paying him $25 million a season.
No, you're not paying a receiver that much money when you've got big old Deza Henry just mushing folk as he runs through your fucking defensive line.
Yeah, they ain't bothered about that.
So I think that was a good move for both parties. The only issue is, as I said, Jalen Hurts. The guy was monkey turd for the majority of last year, even though people were bumming off him. This year has to be one of those years for the Eagles where they have to say, right, you've got everything at your disposal now. Like, there's no excuse whatsoever for the Eagles. Like, they should be good, technically. Yeah. They should be good.
That's what I mean. The NFC East is actually getting a little bit better.
So, and it's about time. So, looking forward to that. I still think that it's going to be a high contest between the Giants and and the Cowboys and the Eagles. I think those teams are starting to slowly balance out, and then the Washington Windsox are running behind like a three-legged dog.
Yeah. Of a car, they're the flat tire.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see what happens there. And so that was my final NFC sign, the Eagles. Some good picks, some horrific picks. So we've been through those. Now we'll move on to the top 10 picks of the draft. Let's just talk them through and just let me know, Dave. I'll just hit you with some of the names, and you just let me know what you believe the impact will be for these players. Like we're talking top 10, so we're talking about potentially the best players in the draft. Let me know whether you think it was a good pick and what impact you think that could have on the teams. Do you think it will make them exponentially better? Does it make them a playoff team, or does it actually not do too much? And we'll go from 10 to 1. So we'll start with the Jets. We've spoken a little bit about it, but they took the potential best wide receiver in the draft in Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. What does that do for the Jets, Dave? What does that do for their offense?
It just makes them they've not really got a standout of the wide receiver.
Not really.
So I think what they needed was they need weapons for Zach Wilson, because he's shown that he can throw the ball. I think he just needs he's shown that he can throw a lot of interceptions as well. But I think they just needed a target for him, and he's a dwarf, and he's about 6 foot. So they needed somebody who's a little bit taller who can go and get the ball. And I think he might be able to open up the defense a little bit, so they can let the running back go and just see what happens.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I think just the more weapons, the better for Zach Wilson. He struggled last year. Like you say, there wasn't a clear number one receiver. He started to make Elijah Moore look pretty good towards the end of the year, but he was a rookie as well. So I don't think Zach Wilson was in the best scenario. They've definitely now put some things in place. We won't talk about it because he's not in the top 10, but they did take the best running back in the draft in Breece Hall as well. That immediately takes pressure off your quarterback if you can hand it off to somebody who's going to, get you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 yards, on a decent running play. So I think that Wilson to Wilson's got a nice little ring to it. So that could reign true for the Jets. So that was pick 10. On to my boys with the ninth pick.
We've not spoke about the Seahawks yet.
I know. I'm holding it in. It's about to burst out. The Seahawks, Seattle, Charles Cross from Mississippi State, offensive tackle, left tackle. How is that going to help my boys moving forward?
Hopefully. You were facing the same problem as us, where your offensive line was absolutely pathetic. It was like, a soggy Kit Kat, apply a little bit of pressure, just collapses. So you needed that, and I think you've got to steal here. Like I say, if Ekwonu and Evan Neal had already gone by the 5th pick, the Giants would have took Charles Cross at 5th at number 5.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think they had Ekwonu and Neal rated as like 1 and 1A, like they're both on the same level, and they were happy with either. But we would definitely link with Charles Cross, who I think again is a little bit sort of like unrefined. He's not the perfect product yet, but I think once a good NFL offensive line coach gets his hands on him, he's going to be an absolute specimen. He's a humongous individual.
He's a massive man, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like 6'5",
and I think he's played some guard. I think he's played some guard as well. So if he don't work out at left tackle, do you know what I mean? He could be bumped inside and become a guard. So I think you've definitely got to start an offensive lineman there for the next 10 years if you want him. You should be buzzing with that, because I'd have been happy with that at 5.
Yeah, no, I was super happy with that pick, to be honest. And in our current situation where we don't have a number 1 quarterback, you have to look at what's on the table and know that, we don't really have the opportunity to win many games with the quarterbacks that we've got. But what you do with signing a player that's a potential starting left tackle is you give them a chance, don't you? You give somebody a chance. You're giving, one of your best players on your team that you're drafting in at that time becomes the protector of the quarterback. And so whether it be Geno Smith, whether it be potentially Baker Mayfield if we make a trade, or whether it be what's his name from the Broncos, Drew Lock. Whether it be one of those three, you're just giving them an extra chance to win a couple of games. I don't think the Seahawks are going to light anybody's world on fire at the moment, but it just gives you that extra second if you've got a beast in the left tackle to get that ball downfield to DK who's taking the top off. It just gives you that extra freedom to be able to just open that playbook out a little bit more. So I'm hoping that Charles Cross makes a big difference for us, but we'll see. We spoke about this one, so not too much time on it, but Drake London going to the Falcons, USC specimen, it's going to help them a little bit because they haven't got one, right?
Yeah, they needed a wide receiver with obviously Calvin Ridley being out for the whole season with his suspension for gambling. Mm-hmm. Julio Jones being traded the year before. I think they needed a wide receiver. He's a big body guy, like we said. I think he's 6'4". Partnering him with Kyle Pitts should give him a bit of downfield threat. And like I say, Mariota can move, so hopefully it takes a bit of attention off him. So it'll be good for them.
Yeah, go on Falcons. Then over to your New York Football Giants at 7th pick. They took Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama, great football school to come from. Clearly going to know his shit, and you've got your right tackle.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, I'll not spend too much time talking about him or Thibodeau, but we needed a bookend right tackle. We've got a left tackle sorted, right tackle's now sorted. We've got a great guard from the Bills, and then we've got a centre from the Colts.
Yeah.
And we drafted another guard in like the 3rd round who had 1st round grades on him. So our offensive lines will be completely different from last year.
That's amazing.
Which is what we needed because Daniel Jones needs a year to provide, to show what he can do. And this is boom or bust with him. We didn't pick up his 5th year option. If he's no good this year, then au revoir. You've had 4 years.
Definitely. I agree.
And that's that.
Good stuff. So with the 6th pick of the NFL Draft 2022, the Carolina Panthers took Akeem Ekwonu from NC State, offensive tackle. Now, I don't want to say the same thing as I said about the Seahawks. I think it's slightly different. I don't think the Panthers have necessarily got the explosiveness that Seahawks have on offense, like receiver wise. They've obviously got Christian McCaffrey, but This to me was obviously a pick that was like, yeah, okay, you're going to take one of the best players, certainly a guard that you can get, or a tackle that you can get. It didn't excite me though. I still thought, fucking hell, Panthers will still be turbo.
Yeah, they're not going to. It don't make them any better. I don't think all it does is again show off the offensive line. Which, if they're in the same predicament that we are with Daniel Jones, they've got Sam Darnold who this is the year for him. If he doesn't do it, then he's on his 5th year option now. Yeah. This is his last year. They'll just get rid of him. So I think it helps a little bit with that. It's going to create a little bit. I mean, you've seen what Christian McCaffrey can do behind a shit line, but
yeah, that's true.
How many more miles does that boy get left in his tyres? Because they give him some touches. When you're getting 50 touches a game,
yeah.
You know what I mean? He only lasts half a season every year, so hopefully it allows them to throw the ball a little bit more with Sam Darnold and not try and break McCaffrey, because the league is definitely better with McCaffrey in it.
It is. I agree. And maybe that big Ekwonu can also create a path for McCaffrey to run through unscathed, as opposed to having to try and fight his way through and pop all of his kneecaps open as he's done most recently. Pick 5 was your pick, Kayvon Thibodeau, your man, Mr. Pass Rush for the Giants. He was a good pick from my perspective. Thought he looked fantastic. Watching his tape, he looks explosive. You guys, Giants, thrive off a good pass rush, and in your division as well, you could make some quarterbacks nightmares. Like you haven't got great quarterbacks to go up against. Like Dak Prescott is okay. I don't think he's good as everyone makes out. Jalen Hurts is fucking wank. And Carson Wentz is absolute doggy turd as well. Any pressure on those two, they're throwing picks for days, mate.
I think all 3 of them are, and that's the good thing about it. That none of them are averse to pressure, And And I think that having Dak, who's relatively mobile, having Jalen Hurts, who is very mobile, and then you've got Carson Wentz, who's just going to get stunned and get broken. But it's good that we've got two young edge rushers that have got going to have the juice to get after these quarterbacks and set the edge and not just let them run rings, you know. So I'd be interested to see. And he plays a little bit like, I'm not saying he don't play like Micah Parsons, but he's the same. He's got that same kind of engine where I feel like he's going to want to get after folk ears. He's got like
hunger,
cocky, nasty hunger in him.
Yeah.
It's just he's going to want to prove himself ears.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I am a little bit happy with that. And I do think it'd be interesting to watch him.
You look a bit smug, Dave.
Yeah, it'd be nice to watch him punish people with that, so I'm happy.
Nah, it's good. You should be. It's a great pick for the Giants. At 4, we had Ahmad Gardner, or Sauce Gardner, should I say, from Cincinnati, cornerback, not giving up a touchdown in his entire professional career, a lockdown corner. He's just, what's he going to do for the Jets? I guess he's just going to help them in their division, right?
Yeah, and I mean, look, when you've got the likes of Stephon Diggs and who else in the division? So the Bills.
You've got the Bills, so you've got Stephon Diggs, you've got the Jets who've just taken a good wide receiver, you've got the Patriots who haven't got a wide receiver, they're going to get locked down by Gardner, and then you've got the Dolphins who have got frickin' Tyreek Hill and Waddle.
I don't think his 0 touchdown thing's going to last for long, especially when you're trying to cover Tyreek Hill. But no, he obviously adds a level of depth to them, and you need good corners, especially if you're going to play. This goes for both him and Stingley Jr. for the Texans. You need good corners if you're going to play aggressive defense, because if you're throwing extra men at that pass rush to try and get the quarterback, you're leaving these corners one-on-one with the likes of Tyreek Hill. If Tyreek Hill was left alone with any corner, he's burning him. I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
But if your corners need to give you that time to get to sort of get to the quarterback by locking up these receivers. You know what I mean? As soon as people see people open, they throw the ball. Yeah. So I think he's going to be good for that. He's got massive wingspan. So yeah, he's going to be a menace to society, I think, to the wide receivers.
I agree, and it's a good division to have somebody who can lock people down, because I think in that division, a good corner will make a difference, because you've got some relatively average quarterbacks in Tua Tagovailoa and in the Patriots quarterback in Mac Jones. So he could force mistakes, force errors, get deep coverage, and then even when you're playing the likes of Josh Allen, who likes to toss the ball deep, if Sauce can be there or thereabouts, he's got that wingspan to be able to even just break the passes up, not necessarily get them picked. And then similarly, pick 3, you just mentioned it, Derek Stingley from LSU, cornerback. He's gone to the Texans. This to me feels, as you just mentioned, it's always important to have a good one, especially if you're going to play aggressive defense. But this also feels like a Panthers-y type move. I think it's just because of the team, but I feel like the Texans just need so much that Stingley's probably going to get wasted at the Texans.
Yeah, they took the best player that was available, I think, in their minds. Not that they've got a pass rush, and they could have definitely done with the likes of Thibodeau. Yeah. You know, they need the offensive line of Ekwonu, Neal. They could have done with a wide receiver like Drake London.
They need everything, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and I think they just looked at it and gone, actually, if Hutchinson would have been available, would have took him, but the next best player is Stingley. But Stingley, I don't know if he sat out the season because of COVID or he was injured. That's why he didn't play in the season. That's why there's question marks over him. Because I think if he'd have been drafted a year before, he'd have been one of the highest rated. I mean, he's gone 3 anyway, but he'd have been unquestionably the best corner taken.
Yeah, definitely. And then you've got 2 pass rushers to finish the day. Quite surprising that Hutchinson dropped to number 2 behind Walker, but he's gone to the Lions. The Lions released Trey Flowers. Does Hutchinson make the Lions a winnable team?
No, he doesn't change anything there, does he? I mean, he's gonna add to their pass rush or whatever, but out of the 2, the Jags are the team that's on. I don't want to say they're on the up because they picked first overall twice, but I think
They could only be on the up, right?
With legit. With the shit that was going on there last year with that idiot head coach they had.
Yeah.
I don't feel we saw the best of Trevor Lawrence. So I think
Agreed.
what they've done is they've just added players just to make the team overall a bit better. I think by adding so many players to your defense, I think what they've been looking at is the fact that it don't matter how many points your offense score if your defense is giving up loads of points because they're absolutely crap.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's why they've gone defense in the first round. But
I think that's good for the Jags because they've got that Josh Allen on one side. They've now put this Trayvon Walker, who's apparently just like got pure raw beastie type physical talents to his name, and like he only came in as a potential number one prospect. Like for me, the week before the draft, as people started sniffing around him, but he's got that potential. And the Jags actually now, I don't think they've got superstar capabilities, but they tend to, or from what I can see, the draft moves that they've made and also the free agency, they overpaid for some average players, but the Jags needed to get to average because they were shit. So if that's what they've done and they've taken themselves into an average position in their division, Colts and Texans and whoever else, they've got the opportunity to compete at the very least, maybe not be the first pick of the 2023 draft. And for the Lions, very similarly, like you say, Hutchinson's not going to turn them into world beaters. They've got to play the Packers and the Vikings every year. He's just going to be a piece that allows them to get a few more sacks and maybe don't have as many points put on them every week.
No, and I think like the weird thing about the Jags is it seems to be a fan base where they don't really care if they're picking first.
No, don't give a fuck.
You don't get much pushback, I don't think, from, I don't know, I'm not hanging about in the Jags community, but
Duval.
Do you know what I mean? If the Giants lose one game, it's fucking doom and gloom. Like, you don't see any positive stuff over Twitter.
No.
So.
Yeah, well, we'll see. And those are our top 10 picks. So, all of them are obviously going to have an impact. It all just depends on how deep and to what level. So, as much as we're bombarding people with the NFL draft, this is, this podcast is the one, shafted or drafted. We've got to talk about it. And then we're going to finish on some draft grades, Dave. So it seems like all the teams this year have been given like an A grade.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit, obviously, because it can't all be fucking, not every player is an A grade. And so me and you, I think we should give our top 3 draft grades, which will be the really ones that the listeners can take to the bank. They'll be the ones that come true in the new season, as opposed to all the pundits from the NFL giving everybody an A+ or an A-. That's literally the sliding scale that this draft is sat on, which is absolute garbage. So we'll go into Dom and Dave's draft grades. So Dave, please give me the teams that you want to give your top 3 draft grades. And you don't have to give them in order either, or you can if you want. Mine aren't in order. Mine are just going to be the best grades for each team. And surprisingly, actually, they're probably not necessarily ones that we've spoken about that much.
No, we've mentioned all 3 of mine.
Have we? Okay,
yeah.
You hit me with your 3 then, and we could just see them off.
So the top 3 graded teams, I went for the Ravens. I gave an A+.
Nice.
I gave the Jets an A-.
Nice.
And then I gave the Giants a B++. But I feel like I'm obviously biased to the Giants, as I'm going to be all season, so suck it up, listeners. But I feel I have a better understanding of what they needed than these gimpy pundits that are like, wow, that person was graded in the 3rd round. Yeah, it might have been, but he's the most likely person that we would need to fill that particular slot.
Yeah.
And he's got a very similar skill set to the person who's injured with an Achilles injury.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care what they say. What I say is right. So they're my 3. I mean, there's probably other teams that were B+ worthy as well. The Chiefs had a great draft. We've not even spoke about the Chiefs. Yeah. They just filled holes.
Hold fire.
Oh, okay. Dom's going to talk about the Chiefs. That's a shock. There is favourite team that's not called the Seahawks.
Yeah. So
I think the
I gave
Bills
the
had a great
Chiefs.
draft as well.
Yeah.
But again, they just felt they weren't splash when you're picking that end of the draft. When you're picking fucking 29, 30, 31 or 32, you ain't getting the splashy players here. So
No, you're not. And so if I give my grades, then I'll start with the low grade, and I gave the Chiefs a B plus. So we will talk about them just for a little minute, and that's because, you know, like as Dave has mentioned, without giving me too much shit, that I do enjoy watching the Chiefs, and I kind of watch them and know what they need. To be competitive, and they definitely needed a cornerback, especially after the season that they had. They had a number of yards put on them by like elite receivers. When they played the Bengals, obviously in the AFC Championship and the game before that, they had their way with them. Joe Burrow threw for like 500 yards, and they need these corners to lock people down, because they're not the team that they once were. They can still get in a shootout, but the defense just doesn't step up. So that Trent McDuffie that they've taken first was a good pick as a corner. I think, he was probably the 4th rated corner in the draft or something like that. I think he plays in the slot, which just, gives them that opportunity to stay relevant with some of those teams that are going to try and yak you after the catch in the AFC, which there are plenty of. They then took that George Karlaftis, I think it was, who was a high graded pass rush, which they reached. I think they traded back in to get him, or back up to get him. Which is a good pick for them, because they got Frank Clark, they've got Chris Jones, but they are missing that outside edge rush that they've not had for a while. They had Melvin Ingram last year, wasn't good enough on the sort of twilight end of his career, and so they've gone in and got some young pass rusher. They took a wide receiver who wasn't a first round pick, let's be honest, but in some mock drafts I'd seen him go either late first or early second, and they managed to get this Sky Moore. He's relatively quick. He's a good route runner, apparently, according to the draft pundits. He's not Tyreek Hill, and I hated it when I saw people saying like, "Oh, they've replaced their Tyreek Hill with Sky Moore."
I love it.
It's like bullshit. This guy, like Tyreek Hill, would run fucking rings around Sky Moore. They've taken a young receiver. He's not especially elitely fast. He's just another weapon for Patrick Mahomes, but it is Patrick Mahomes. It's the same principle. You put it into that conversation. The Packers taking a wide receiver in the second round. Well, Devontae Adams was a second round receiver.
Yeah, all the receivers have come from the second round. So that's exactly. I see why they're doing it.
Because Rodgers can make them. He could make the fucking janitor probably a number 1 receiver if he wanted to, because it's Rodgers. Mahomes is probably going to be something very similar, albeit we didn't see the elite version of Mahomes last year all year. But he's still Sky Moore's going to have 6 touchdowns this year and probably fucking 600 yards or something like that. You just know he will. He's not necessarily going to be Tyreek Hill. That's the difference. But to me, it was a good draft, and they hit on some of those positions that they needed. So yeah, I gave the Chiefs a B plus. I gave an A minus to the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
I know I've not spoken about them too much, but we took Charles Cross with the number 1 pick. As we've spoken about, it was a good value at that point. Our second pick in the second round was Boye Mafe, who is a very good pass rush. Again, in some of the mock drafts and in some of the PFF grades, he was given a first round grade. He was definitely slated to be picked in the first round, but I think because so many pass rush went early, other teams capitalized on the other skill positions that were available because of that, and so he dropped into the early second. But he looks like a new positional player that we're going to use in a 3-4 defense. He's labelled as a linebacker, but he's a quick, twitchy, cat-like pass rusher. Been sort of likened to Danielle Hunter, which if he was even 3/4 of Danielle Hunter, I would be self-pleasuring on most weeks. And then we took Kenneth Walker, a running back, fairly unknown to me, so I'm not going to pretend and sit here like I thought, yeah, it's wicked to take him, but having looked at him a little bit, he's a power runner. You just don't know what you're going to get with a second round running back. in the past, you've been able to hit on people like Alvin Kamara, who was a 3rd round running back, Nick Chubb, who's a 2nd round running back. You don't know what you're going to get. With clearly knowing what we're doing, we're still a run first team. We've taken an offensive tackle. We've taken a running back. We then took another offensive tackle, Abraham Lucas, with our 3rd round pick. So we're going hard on that run game and on that shoring up that offensive line. We took 2 very good college corners, Kobe Bryant, named after the late basketball player, and then Tariq Woolen, who was the fastest cornerback in the draft. And then we added a couple of wide receivers, literally, and another edge rusher, just for shits and giggles. Can't say anything about them that I know anything about them, because I don't. But I felt like, in terms of what we needed outside of a quarterback, we really did ourselves a good setup. And I can only be excited for the team that we have outside of said quarterback.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what you do next year. Which is obviously all going to be relating on this year. I mean, like I say, you just don't know. Fucking one of them quarterbacks could have this breakout year. I mean, it ain't going to be Geno Smith. He's been in the round long enough. But if you do get Baker Mayfield, he could be the guy for you going forward, or it could be the other you.
Drew Lock.
I can't see it.
Yeah,
no,
I can't see it. But we can only hope, or I can only hope. And then the final grade, which I gave an A+, which we don't need to talk about because I spent enough time on it, but it was the Baltimore Ravens. So I gave my number 1 pick draft grade 2, just because of what it did to their team and how it sort of turned them around. They got 2 studs in Hamilton and Linderbaum, who are going to have an immediate impact, and then Ajabo is going to eventually come in when he's healed up. But I think to me, it was about what the Baltimore Ravens drafted, the way that they know they're going to play football. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So they're going to lock you down in the secondary, and they're going to try and run all over you. And so that's why they get an A+. And that was my draft grade. So Dom and Dave's grades, listen out for those. Let's see how they go throughout the season. One last bit of news, Dave, just as breaking news. Tyrann Mathieu, so the highest graded remaining free agent, landed today at his home team or hometown of New Orleans for the Saints. And so Saints have now got their free or strong safety. That is the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. Bit of a boring one for me, to be honest. I don't think the Saints, they don't excite me in any shape or form, but they're probably still going to be very competitive because they always are. I just think it's a boring pick for him. I don't think it's the most exciting place he could have gone. I think there's plenty more competitors that he could have gone to.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see what his contract is, but it just shows, if the Chiefs don't value him anymore, is he over the hill?
Could be.
He was never great in coverage, anyway. He's like a Jamal Adams kind of safety.
Box safety, yeah. So that's it. Breaking news done. Draft recap over. And thank you all for listening to our NFL podcast. This has been In the End Zone UK. Myself and Dave will be back as soon as we can, as soon as there's enough content, as soon as there's enough talking stories for the NFL for us to jump back on a podcast, we'll be straight on it. But thank you for listening. Please take the time to subscribe, to share us, to follow us on Instagram at In the End Zone UK. We will be hitting a fair few new bits of content coming soon. We've hopefully got a secret collaboration coming up in the near future as well, which we'll give a lot of information on when we've locked that one in. But for the time being, keep watching NFL, keep pushing football, stay on top of it. Thanks for listening.